What's up, you guys? Now today I'm going to be making a video that I'm really excited to make because it's real fun on my side of things, but it's also really valuable for you. If you're a larger guy like I am, or a larger girl, and you're curious how far you're going to be able to take an electric bike such as this 2024 Wired Freedom, the other thing we're going to be taking a look at while we're doing this is the motor temperature sensor. So right now the motor temperature is a little bit lower than the ambient temperature, probably because the metal is holding the cold from last night. I've done the math and it seems like the battery should run out at about 52 volts. It'll be completely flat. Now I don't want to run the bike until it won't go any more at all, but I am going to try and get that as low as possible to give you guys a real world idea of, you know, how far you can go on this bike, especially if you're a bigger person. Like I said, I'm 6'3", 225 pounds. We're putting out 2,000 watts already right now, and I want to find out exactly how long this bike will last. Also, what will the motor temperature get to on a high-speed run like this? We're going 34 miles an hour. I'm barely even pedaling as it is. We're in the highest gear, and we're on the highest pedal assist setting. All right, there's 40, 41, 42, 42 and a half miles an hour, guys. That's amazing. If you haven't seen my previous videos, go ahead and take a look at those. This is a 60-volt battery system with a 40-amp controller. Pretty impressive stuff for a bike that's only $2,000. You have hydraulic disc brakes. And like I said, it's just pretty amazing that it also has full suspension along with all these other stats. So the motor temperature looks like it's already up to 87 degrees. Definitely putting some power through it. Like I said, we're at about 1900 watts. I'm gonna leave all my settings where I have them for power. Like I said, this would be a worst case scenario, what you can expect to get as far as range for a bike like this. Now, considering the speed we're going, I hope you can hear me okay with this microphone. Definitely a lot of wind noise going on, but I'm just gonna talk right through it. Now today I charged the battery until the fan turned off and the light went green. I don't usually do that because I don't go on trips that take an hour and a half, 2 hours that, you know, are gonna cover 40 miles every day. But if I do, obviously you wanna charge that all the way up. I have my chest mounted GoPro. If anybody's curious, it's a GoPro Hero 8 Black. I love it, it's been great. I have an extra battery with me, and when we get to the halfway point, I will be plugging that in, or I'll be switching batteries to, you know, make sure that I'm able to get the entire trip all on camera. So under this load, the voltage of the battery, it's interesting, has already dropped to 60.7 volts. Now, obviously that's under a load, and they call that voltage sag, at least they do in RCs. But when you sit, like I just let off the throttle there, it went up to 63 volts. So, you know, if I stopped for a while and sat, it would probably come all the way back up to 65 volts or so. I'll kind of let that do that here for a second. You can already see it's at 64, 64.2. So because it's putting out 2,000 watts of power, which is incredible, it definitely creates a lot of voltage sag on that meter. So in order to get an accurate reading, you really have to stop the bike for a second and kind of see where it's at. Now, in order to run this battery all the way down, I may need to turn some of this power down just a bit in order to get that last bit of power out, because it may not be able to put out 2,000 watts of power when it's down really low, because the voltage sag will make it go down to the cutoff. Also, Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy Holidays. You guys are watching this on Saturday. Christmas will be on Monday. If you guys have any questions about the 2024 Wired Freedom, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section. I will respond to every comment. And if you're curious about a measurement or a setting, or, you know, anything about the bike, if you're curious and you're looking to buy one but you don't know what it's going to do, let me know and I'll reach out to you. To my left, I don't know if you guys can see that, I'll try to stand up, is the actual dam itself. And down at the bottom is the American River, part of it that comes from Folsom Lake. So when the rains are really heavy and the lake is full, they'll spill water in this overflow here. And this is the secondary spillway that they'll use in case of an emergency if they need to. We're gonna go right by that. So again, I'll kind of turn sideways as much as I can here and let you guys see that. That's Folsom Lake Dam, and then this is the secondary spillway right here with the stair steps. Now this is a little bit of a hill right here. We are seeing 68 degrees ambient temperature, which is amazing. 134 degree for the motor temperature sensor. So if you haven't seen my previous videos, I've made a few videos about how to set up the menu settings on this bike in particular, and also that this does have a motor temperature sensor. In that video, I had you set it to 0, and I made a follow-up video saying that, with an update, saying basically this bike, if you have the 2024 model, it does have the motor temperature sensor built in. If you have the 2023 model, it does not. So set that setting to 1 to get that information to pop up. It'll say MOTT, that's motor temperature. Now it's up to 141, 143 degrees now. I'm gonna turn again to the left, and you can see beautiful lake. It's got some extra water in it because we've had a lot of rain lately. Absolutely gorgeous. I just love living here. In the background is the Sierra Mountains. You can kind of see some snow. You might not be able to see it on camera here, but in the background there, those mountains are covered with some snow, and then beyond that is Tahoe. Tahoe's about an hour and a half away. Here's a beginning of the Johnny Cash Trail right here. Okay, so we're about 4 miles in. Motor temperature sensor is showing 156 Fahrenheit. So if you see over here, the bridge says the Johnny Cash Trail. Super cool. It's amazing how much faster you can get around on this bike. You know, I've done this trail multiple times on my other bikes, and even my regular pedal bike, my regular mountain bike that doesn't have any power. And let's take a look real quick at the, hello, I'm Johnny Cash. So here's the Johnny Cash Trail here with all the beautiful oak trees and the grass that's coming in. In the background you can see the redwood trees as well. It's really a beautiful area. If you haven't seen parts of Northern California and you live in California, especially Southern California where I'm from, it's a totally different environment. I mean, it's the same state, but very different in a lot of ways. Similar in some ways, but very different in others. So, like I said, we'll get back on the power just to be accurate with this test. I don't want to do very much coasting because I want this to be worst case scenario. I know I've said it a few times, but I think people are going to skip around on this video. It's going to be a longer video. I'll try to cut it down so that it's not too long, but I want to give you guys the full experience of what it's like. So we're going about 37 miles an hour very easily. I'm barely pedaling on this bike. One thing that somebody left a comment about that I kind of agree with is that I wish they would put torque sensors on this bike instead of cadence sensors. However, this is the Folsom Prison right here to my right. However, I will mention one thing. If you have a cadence sensor, it's very easy to just lightly pedal like I'm doing here, and it'll keep you going full speed, and you don't have to be pushing with a lot of torque. Now, I guess technically you could just full throttle if you want that without having to be pushing really hard and keeping up with, you know, the top speed. So for on-road, cadence sensors are nice because it keeps your top speed going easily without having to put a lot of torque into the bike to get that full power. Off-road, however, it's better to have torque sensors because what that does is if you press on the pedals lightly without a lot of power from your legs, you get a mimic of that from the motor. You get the same amount of power coming out from the motor as you would from your legs. So if you do a slow start, the bike will also help you at a slow power level. If you pedal hard and put a lot of torque in, the bike will give you full power. So you'll notice a more natural riding style if you have torque sensors. However, like I said, for on-road, it's nice to have a cadence sensor where you don't, especially with this 56 tooth ring, you don't have to sit and pedal really hard to get full power out of it. As you can see, we're getting about 1900 watts and I'm barely even pedaling. So it really depends on the type of riding that you're doing. Also, I will say there are settings that you can change in the menu option that allow you to not have that full power if you turn the pedal assist down. So if you put it to pedal assist 1, 2, or 3, obviously you'll have less power, but you can also control how quickly that power comes on. And that setting is the C5 setting I was talking about earlier. If you do 0 or 1, 2, and 3, you will have a lot less power at the start of the crank turn than you will once you get going. From what I've heard, if you put it to 0, you will get all of that power. It just won't be all at once up front. So there are ways to kind of modulate that power and make it more reasonable if you're interested. Here's some goats here eating the grass. They use that to control the grass on the hillsides. So like I said, you know, which would you prefer this bike was equipped with from the factory? Would you rather it have cadence sensors, or would you rather it have a torque sensor? Now, as you can see right there in that turn, I have it turned up all the way full power. So as soon as I crank my legs, it goes like full power, because I have that setting on the C5 setting turned all the way up to 10. So, you know, sometimes it's nice to have it where if you turn the crank slowly, it'll slowly accelerate through turns and out of turns, whereas this is just going to put the power down right away. So you kind of have to be used to that. Same thing with the throttle. If I give it throttle, I can modulate the throttle though, unlike the pedals. If you turn the pedals, once those cadence sensors realize that you're going, it's going to put all the power out. But like I said, you can adjust that. Super cool wooden bridge right here with some steel holding up the beams. But like I said, you can adjust that if you'd like to have a different setting so that it doesn't do that. I like having all the power at once most of the time. I do a lot of on-road riding and riding like this and light dirt trails. I don't do a lot of heavy riding off-road with this bike. I don't intend to because of the weight of it. It is full suspension, which is great. But if I want to do really heavy off-roading, I recommend getting a mid-drive motor and get that weight out of your hub, out of the back wheel. That hub weight of the motor in your rear wheel is not ideal going over bumps. Like I said, having the full suspension really helps that a lot compared to a hardtail. But if I'm gonna do really heavy duty downhill stuff, get a downhill bike, or like I do, ride just a normal hardtail or a full suspension mountain bike without power, you know. It's gonna be a little harder to go up the hills, but I don't know. I just think having a full electric bike for heavy duty off-roading is not worth it, unless you have like a specialized bike, the company, not the bike. But if you have a specialized bike with like a Bosch mid-drive, you know, if you have an extra $5 or $6 grand to spend on something like that, then you can, you know, go up the hills and be able to go downhill with a lot of control and not have to worry about all this weird power setting and odd, you know, turning on, turning off. Probably a torque sensing mid-drive would be ideal for off-road. But for on-road, like I said, I like this setup because I can go full speed at any time and it's really easy to do. I don't have to worry. I'm getting 2,000 watts and I'm barely even pedaling. So we're still at 4 bars. We're still at about 60 volts when it's under load, and we're at about 62 or 63 when it's not at full load. We're already down to Sutter Street, so I may need to actually do this loop twice, believe it or not, which is kind of crazy. I can't believe how fast we're getting through this. I mean, I'm already in downtown Folsom, which in a car takes 10 to 15 minutes, and we've done it here in 17 minutes so far. The time there is 17 minutes. We've gone 6.9 miles. So all right, so let's see how we do with this traffic. Man, it's so nice to be able to just keep up with traffic and not have any issues. Okay, so we can cross over right here. There's 2 different ways to go. And we want to continue going this way across the Johnny Cash Trail here. So we're going to take this down, and this should wind us along the river here. They call it the Natomas area, but it's the American River. And then if you take that all the way down to Sacramento, the confluence is the American River and the Sacramento River go together right there at the city, at Sacramento downtown. So we're at 195 on the temperature. We've gone 20 minutes of riding. We've gone 8 miles, which is incredible. But look how beautiful this is here. I'm going to shut up just so you guys can hear how quiet and beautiful this is. You can see the guy paddleboarding down there. It's pretty awesome. So we've made it all the way down to the Folsom State Prison, basically barrier. So you can't go any further here because that takes you down to the other side, which if you see those cars way over there in the distance, behind that is the dam that we just drove down, and we went all the way around. So what we're going to do is, obviously we're not going to go into the prison here. I'm going to turn around, I'm going to go back this way, and I'm going to go out, and we're going to go along that bridge in the distance there where the cars are going across, and we're going to come down and then we're gonna ride up this trail where those kids are on bikes over there. And we're gonna take this all the way as far as we can. So let's go ahead and do that. The motor temperature is still at 181, so no overheating. I'm not gonna intentionally try to make the motor overheat. I may do that on another video just to see what temperature the motor cuts out at, and also, you know, how much uphill heat and intensity can it take. I actually think that it's less likely to overheat when you're riding like this because you're getting more wind, but in a way it actually might be more likely also because you're putting more power down. When you're going uphill, there's a lot of torque on the motor, but it's really hard to get all of that power out when you're going up a steep hill unless it's flat. So maybe up a paved road or something, you may be able to go as hard and as fast as the motor will go, and it may cause it to overheat. Off-roading, I would assume that you're gonna, you know, if there's rocks and whatnot in the way, you're not gonna be in the highest gear, you're not gonna be full throttling it, you're gonna be kind of modulating that power in order to, you know, go over all the bumps. So we're gonna find out though, you know, if it does overheat, I'll definitely let you guys know. I don't work for Wired. I don't have any affiliation with this company. I just really get excited when I see things that, like the Sur-Ron, that when it first came out, you know, the Light B, I had that one, and then I got the Ultra for riding in the desert. But I'm just interested in, you know, products that are unlike any other on the market, you know, things that can do the stuff I want to do better, I guess you could say, like full suspension and the hydraulic brakes and the 60-volt battery on a regular looking bike, because my Sur-Ron Ultra can go 55 miles an hour and it's a 74-volt system, and it's, you know, 8 inches of travel front and rear and all that stuff, but it looks like a dirt bike. It does not look like a bicycle. So I like this because it looks more like a regular fat tire e-bike that's 750 watts. And I can even turn it down to make it technically street legal. I mean, that's how they ship it. But, you know, I'm just curious, you know, when I see stuff like this, how are people able to go so much faster on a bike that looks the same? You know, with this type of technology, 60-volt systems and 40-amp controllers and more, it's really fun because it just totally transforms the experience, and it allows you to get places a lot quicker. You know, I would still be riding my other bike down here at maximum 24 miles an hour, and here we're going 30, 35, 40. I mean, you even saw us hit 42 there for a second. Here's a cool little, I don't know what you would call this, a dike or a derrick or whatever this thing is here. We're gonna actually go down this, oh, are we? Dang, that's pretty steep right there. I've never actually done this particular drop. I don't know if I want to do it on this bike right now because it's all wet, but man, that would be fun. That is a steep drop. I know it doesn't look like it on video, but should we do it? A little mossy over there, a little wet. Man, I'd love to do this. Should I do it? I probably should do it. The other option is to go this way through the trees. You know what? I think we should just do it. Here we go. Back up a little bit and get a little speed going. Oh man, that was gnarly. Definitely super steep. All right, that full suspension came in handy. That noise you heard there for a second was my pedal. I had my pedal down as I stepped on. I didn't put it up into the neutral position. So a little scrape there, but no big deal. All right, so now we're going over the river here on this bridge. I'm gonna stop for a second, kind of get a shot here. Pretty beautiful. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do is, I wanna take a picture of this bike. Let me give you guys an idea of what happened to my bike here. You can see that scrape, that's what hit when I went down that. So we're at 62.7 volts. The ambient temperature is still 66 degrees, but we're at 167 on the motor temperature. After 25 minutes, we're at 8.9 miles, about 9 miles total. All right, so let's get some speed going here. We're gonna go right by the river, so some beautiful scenery for you guys. I'll kind of turn a little bit there so you can see more of that. Absolutely gorgeous day today. As you can see here, I'll lean back a little bit. These cliffs are pretty insane. There's some oak trees growing out of them there. super steep. I mean, that goes straight down, probably I'd say at least 100 feet. Then you got people that kayak and people that ride boats. So I don't mean to turn this into a tour necessarily of Folsom, but I want this to be real world. And sometimes you're gonna slow down, sometimes you're gonna have to stop, you know. So I want this to be realistic, but also to be worst case scenario. It's not necessarily trying to, you know, kill the battery or overheat the motor, but I also do want to find those things out. So the temperature down here is about 64 degrees ambient and about 168 on that motor temperature sensor. Nice wide open area that's flat. In fact, we can probably see what speed we can get to here on this. The voltage is down to 58.1 volts, 58.0 now. We're going about 35 miles an hour. Now the temperature on that motor is up to 188 already, so it just jumped up like 20 degrees by giving it a little bit of throttle like this. We're down to 1800 watts, so it's not quite putting out the full 2000. So when you get that voltage sag, your total wattage is going to go down, because wattage is a measurement of amperage times volts. So there's a 40 amp controller here on this bike, and it's a 60 volt system. So if you multiply those together, you get 2400 watts. Now, in real time, it's not going to actually put out 2400 watts. I believe 2200 is the max for this motor. I've only seen it hit 2100 or so, maybe 2150. But like I said, that's plenty. I mean, 2000 watts of power on a pedal bike that weighs less than 100 pounds is more than you need. Okay, so at this point, we're 31 minutes in. We've gone 11.3 miles, and we still have all 4 bars showing. Now, the voltage is dropped to 57.2 there for a second. It's back up to 58 when I stop pedaling. And it goes up even higher when I stop more, 59.7, 60. So 60 volts down to like 58 when I start pedaling hard, 57. So it's pretty interesting. The bar graph is actually probably more accurate than the voltage is, because it's constantly fluctuating unless you come to a rest. Once you come to a stop and rest, then you'll see that start to change. Now, again, I have fully charged this battery, and what I've noticed is when you fully charge a battery, it's kind of like having a car with a full gas tank. The first part of the meter doesn't seem like it starts to move until you're, I don't know, 50, 75, 100 miles into your tank, depending on your car. And then it starts to go down. And at the very end of the battery, also like the end of a gas tank gauge, you'll notice it go down really quickly at the end. And I think that's just the way the gauges and everything are set up. I'm not sure exactly why, but I've noticed that happen a lot. And Main Avenue staging area. Let's go down this way to Hazel, and then we'll come back this same direction. So, you know, this is probably going to start dropping, and then when it gets to like 2 or 1 bars, I want to be somewhat closer to my house, because I know that it's going to run out a lot quicker than it's going to show here at the beginning. See these huge piles of rock? It's from dredging in the lake, and it also is holding the embankments in on the sides, keeps it from eroding. So you can see there's a lot of bicycle traffic on this trail here and all over. Today's a Wednesday that I'm filming this, so it's not even a weekend, and you can see all the people out. It is Christmas week, so a lot of people are off work, and it's a beautiful day, and it's been raining, so everybody's kind of out to, you know, have a good time and whatnot. All right, so we are at 12 miles. Like I said, still have all 4 bars, so pretty impressive that a 225-pound rider can ride this bike 12 miles at basically full power and still have 4 full bars left of battery. I mean, there really is zero range anxiety on a bike like this. Now, could you pedal it once the battery dies? Yes, of course. And you probably want to start to do that before it completely dies, so that you don't damage the battery. But a big heavy bike like this, it does have 7-speed gearing, a Shimano shifter here, so you could ride this bike around without power, but it would be very difficult to do. It would be very heavy. You probably wouldn't enjoy it very long. It would be mostly an emergency situation. I'm gonna go ahead and pass this guy here real quick. I'm sure these bicycle guys are like, what the heck is that thing? But like I said, I love the undercoverness of it being a pedal bike, just a fat tire bike that goes really fast. I mean, it's so unassuming. If you didn't look at the battery and you didn't look at the motor or controller or know what those look like at, you know, this level of 40 amps and 60 volts, you're not even going to notice. You know, it's not like you're going to be able to tell that this bike has a 2,000 watt capacity and can go 40 miles an hour. It just doesn't look like it, which I think is the best part about this bike. Along with, I'd say, the full suspension. I really love having full suspension. Boy, look how beautiful that is. I really love having full suspension. It just makes it so much softer of a ride. It makes it to where if you are going to do, you know, 20, 30, 40 miles, 50 miles, you're going to need A, a comfortable seat, and B, a comfortable ride in general, because you're going to get beat up, you know, riding that long on a normal bicycle, obviously. And so this almost feels like a motorcycle. Oh, this is so great. Hit that like button if you like watching this content, if you're curious about this bike, if you're thinking of buying this bike, if you've already purchased this 2024 Wired Freedom. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you bought one. What color did you buy? Where do you live? Where do you ride this bike at? I really like all this feedback. I appreciate it. I read every comment and I will reach out. And if you ask me a question, I will respond. Guaranteed. I promise. So, I'm just going to go ahead and wind around this trail here. As you can see, again, beautiful river is turning into the Thomas Lake here. Tons of off-road trails we could go to. I really want to push this bike, so I'm not going to do too much of the, well, I might do a little off-roading back there for a while, just because, oh, we've lost our first bar. As I look at my meter here, 57 volts, and we're down to 3 bars. So I'm going to go until I see 2 bars, and then I think I'm going to turn around and head back towards my house. We've been riding for 36 minutes, and we're at 13.6 miles. Incredible distance that we've traveled riding a bicycle. Yeah, I know, it's an electric bike, but getting that type of distance in that amount of time is unbelievable. You see the kayakers here having a good time. Boy, it's just a beautiful day, guys. 64 degrees. Motor temperature sensor 201 degrees there. So I've been pedaling pretty hard, not really hard, but like I said, it's a Cadence sensor, but really fast this entire time, and putting out now 2,000 watts still. And it hasn't overheated. 201 degrees Fahrenheit with 0 issues. So, you know, maybe we might find out what that upper range temperature should be in Fahrenheit, but I just can't assume that we're gonna really see that cut out just riding around like this. But like I said, it is a lot of wattage going through that motor. So heat is expected. I mean, when you're putting out that much energy, it's, you know, it's going to create some heat, but pretty impressive. I mean, it's 203 degrees now, motor temperature sensor. So I know we've had a few questions about that. I've tried to find out exactly, you know, what the maximum temperature is for the motor temperature sensor, but I haven't gotten any clear answers yet. I may reach out to Wired directly and try to see if I can find out from them, you know, what that upper limit is. A little nervous if I ask that question. They might say, well, you know, it's going to void your warranty if you do. I doubt it. I mean, I'm sure it has a cutoff. I've heard that it cuts off, so, you know, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. All right, so let's go ahead and turn around basically and head back the way that we came. We'll take a different trail just so that the sights and scenery is a little different. But we're going to go ahead and start going back towards that split that we were at downtown in Folsom there. Motor temperature sensor is showing 204 degrees now. Ambient temperature is 68 degrees outside. Nice and warm for December. Stand up there, maybe you can see the water coming out. Pretty cool. So I've looked at the manual that comes with the bike for the shock, and it looks like it's set up for about a 200-pound rider, which is pretty nice, because they used to set bikes up for an average rider, which I think would be 5'10", 180 pounds. Me being 6'3", 225, I like that the bike is set up closer to 200. It's more realistic, I think, for today's men, you know, that are taller and a little heavier, obviously. But if you want to adjust that, I may do a video showing how to adjust that air shock. It basically has a positive air shock and a negative air shock side, and you can use a high pressure air pump to adjust that for your particular rider weight. You can also set the sag and the compression. So very quickly, you want to set that sag to about 15 to 25% of the shock length. So when you fully sit on the bike with all your weight, the shock should depress about 25% if you're doing off-road a lot, and about 15% if you're doing cross-country. That's what the manual says. So if you want to see a video like that and you're interested, leave a comment and I'll be sure to make that one of my next videos coming up. Otherwise, you know, it is pretty clear-cut in the manual how to do it. There's compression and there's rebound settings, and there's a lockout for the shock in case you're going up really steep hills and you don't want to be bouncing. So let me know, leave a comment if you want to see a video about that. If you're curious, I can do that for you as well. So ambient temperature 66 in the shade here and 203 for the motor temperature sensor. We're at 43 minutes of total time, and we're at 16.2 miles. We're still getting about 1800 watts, 1770 or so when I pedal, and we're down to 55.1 volts. So started at 67 volts, I believe is what it was when we were fully charged, 67 volts. And if I kind of stop pedaling here just for a second, you'll see it come back up from 55 volts to 57, 57 and a half, 58. Okay, so now we're at 58 volts, and it seems like it's kind of leveling right there. We're down to 2 bars, folks. So 16.4 miles in, 44 minutes of total riding time with only just a few momentary stops. The voltage on the battery under load is 55 volts at the halfway point, and we're seeing the motor temperature sensor up at 206. Okay, so I want to keep pushing that motor temperature sensor just to see. I want to keep pushing the wattage to get you the worst case scenario in real life on this bike. So I'm going to just kind of keep going here. We're going to start heading back towards my house because I think since we're at 2 bars, it'll be perfect. We should arrive back to my house around a flat battery, right around there. And like I said, I'm not going to go until the bike won't go any further, but I am going to go until it starts flashing, and then what'll happen is when I stop, that voltage sag should come back up, the meter should stop flashing. At least this is the way my other bikes work. And then what I'll do is I'll probably turn the pedal assist down to like 2 or 3, somewhere in there, to limit how much power it's putting out. And then I will, instead of full throttling the entire time, for that last bit, I'll just pedal, and I'll have pedal assist to like 3, maybe start at 4 and then go to 3 and then down. The reason I'm going to do that is that's exactly what I would do if I'm actually riding my other bikes. When they run out of power, that's what I do. I turn the power down so I can get home. Because the last thing you want to do is run out of power and have to pedal without the bike. And you don't want to damage the bike. You don't want to run it until the battery doesn't work anymore. I've done that on some other tests. I really don't like to do that to the battery, especially for something as expensive as this. I want to, you know, make this thing last as long as possible, and the battery is usually the weak point. You know, that's the thing that's going to run out on you. The motor should last, you know, all the suspension parts should be fine, but if you don't take care of your battery, it's not going to hold up long enough for you to use the entire life of the bike, and you have to buy a new battery. I've had other bikes before, and my other Rad Rover bike I put over 4,000 miles on it. I had it for, it was a 2017, and I just got rid of it like a year ago, and it still worked fine. It still worked great. The range was going down, it wouldn't go as far. You know, the battery meter would go down a lot quicker, kind of like your cell phone battery does, but it still worked. And the reason why is because I always stored it at about 50%, or, you know, 2 bars. And whenever the battery went all the way out and I completely killed the battery, I'd always try to charge it up immediately as soon as possible. Because a big factor on your battery and whether or not, okay, so we're at 213 degrees Fahrenheit there on the motor temperature sensor. So that's interesting. It's going higher than the 200 that I thought it would go to, or 205, and it seems to still be working fine. I don't know what that upper range limit is. I don't know when it cuts out. Hopefully we might find out today. But like I said about batteries, it's important that if you're going to fully charge the battery, to use it right away. If you're going to charge it up until it turns off like I did, be sure to use it. Do not charge your battery and let it sit. Like I said in a previous video, these lithium batteries, whether they're lithium ion or lithium polymer or any version, you want to make sure that it's like your stomach. You don't want it to be fully full, and you don't want it to be fully empty, because that's where the pain comes in. You want it to be, it's like a Tesla, right? You want it to be in between 80 and 20% for the cycles. The less discharge depth you do, the less amount of cycles you're taking out of the battery life. The deeper the charges and the deeper the discharges, the more cycles you're using of the battery. And when it's at the high end and the low end, there's more, basically the energy is, when it's charged, needs to get out, and when it's depleted, it needs to be charged back up, because the ions have moved sides in the battery and they're all on basically one cathode or one side. It's hard to explain, but basically it's on one side of the battery's chemistry, and you don't want to leave it in that state for very long. So if you discharge your battery all the way, charge it up right away. If you fully charge your battery all the way up, go use it. Don't let it sit there. Someone asked me, what's the best way to discharge the battery if it's still too full? It does have a USB port on the side. I'm not sure if it's a 2 amp or a 3 amp or 1 amp. I haven't looked into that, but you know, you could probably charge your phone and some other devices, hook up some, you know, USB cameras, whatever you have, and let it, you know, discharge that way. Say if it's raining and you don't want to go ride, but you charge it up anyways and you realize, or you don't have time to go ride, or you get a flat and your battery's full and you want to discharge it and you can't ride it, you know, that may be one way to do it. It would probably take forever considering how big the battery is, but the best way is to go ride it. Obviously that will, you know, use the voltage as quick as possible. Now, like I mentioned before, I thought the bottom end of this voltage would be around 50 volts. Doesn't look like it at this point, at least under load. So under load, we're down to about 53 there, and it's popping up quickly to 55, 56 volts. And it seems like the battery gauge knows that that's sag. And, but I think if you had a resting voltage of around 50 volts, you would be down into the 1 bar range, maybe possibly even no bars. And then flashing should be the bare extreme, you know, minimum voltage. So it's kind of interesting. Somebody was asking me, you know, should you watch the voltage or should you look at the bars? You know, they called it the Gesso meter. You know, it seems like this Gesso meter is semi-accurate, almost more accurate than the voltage, without stopping and letting that voltage come back up to get an accurate reading of where you're at in your battery. Okay, so we're at 19 miles, 50 minutes of riding, almost an hour, 219 degrees Fahrenheit on the motor temperature sensor, 64 degrees outside, and seems to be running great. I mean, I'm not having any issues with it so far. We're gonna keep riding this trail backward the way we came. Look at this guy on this bike. Pretty cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to clean that rotor. I think I got a little bit of oil on there maybe, or some grease or something on it. But like I said, 219 degrees in that motor temperature sensor and no cutout yet, no issues. So we're gonna maybe find out today what that cutoff limit is. Also be careful riding on wet leaves like this. If you ride a motorcycle, you know those can be really dangerous. They slip just like ice in certain situations, so just be really careful. All right. Motor temperature sensor up to 222 degrees Fahrenheit. Interesting. All right. Pretty warm. That's a lot of temperature. I mean, you can start cooking at that level. Okay guys, so I just saw the battery meter go down to 55 volts and it hit 1 bar. So it looks like at about 55 volts you can expect your battery to start running down to around 1 bar or so, you know, depending on if you lower the amount of wattage you're putting through it. Now, like I said, I put this down to level 3 and I've just been riding it around back and forth, kind of boring, but I wanted to get it down to the lowest point possible without it cutting out on the way. Oh boy. And we're at about 26.6 miles at this point. I did have to change the battery on my camera. It died there when I was riding back and forth and I didn't quite notice it. But I'm gonna keep driving this, I'm gonna keep riding this thing around until we get to the point where there are no bars, and then also when it starts flashing. So right now, like I said, it's down to 1 bar. I noticed that happen at about the 55 volt mark. And like I said, it depends on if you're under load or not, or resting. But that looks like, you know, it's going down to about 54.2 or so at this lower setting. I decided to turn it down once I hit that one bar level, so that I could get the rest out of it. Because, you know, if I was riding my bike and I ran out of juice, I ran out of power, what I would do naturally is turn it down to level 3 here for the last bar to get me home. So I kind of want to simulate that real world scenario. And like I said, see how far that goes. But more importantly, where is the voltage when the battery actually dies? Where's the voltage at when it cuts out? I noticed the motor temperature dropped back down when I had to change the battery on my GoPro there. So it looks like it cools down pretty quickly. Huh, I wonder why this is closed. Okay, well, we'll just go this way then. But anyways, so we'll do a little bit of riding through some of these neighborhoods, I guess. And like I said, I just want to see where the battery decides to say that it's at no bars. And then once it goes to no bars, I'm going to very carefully take it down to where it's flashing. And when it starts flashing, I want to be really close to my house so that I can get it home, because I really don't like doing that to the battery, but I need to find out where the full flat battery is actually at, you know, where there's no more power to push the bike. And so like I said, we're getting close now. It looks like it goes down to about 54 volts when I throttle or when I pedal. And we're at 27 miles now total. So it looks like you can get around 27 miles or so, give or take. All right, so we're just gonna keep pushing this thing here a little bit. So under hard, you know, decent pedaling, looks like we're getting about 53 volts, 53.5 volts. I wanna see where that cutoff mark is. Should be coming up here soon. And like I said earlier in the video, you're probably going to see that voltage drop a lot quicker at the end of the battery than you are at the very beginning. It's going to take a while for that first bar to disappear, but the end of the battery is going to go down a lot quicker than the beginning part of the battery will. So we'll go ahead and just go around this neighborhood that's close to my house here for a while. Oh, okay, so I just saw that 1 bar disappear and then it just came back, and we're at 54.5 volts. It's down to 60 degrees ambient temperature out here. The motor temperature dropped a lot, like I said, because I took a little break there when my my GoPro camera died and I had to switch batteries. It's getting a little cooler outside, and I'm not pushing as much wattage through the motor because I really want to find out how far you can get that down to in a realistic situation. You know, it's unlikely that you would kill the battery all the way and then run it, you know, okay, so that bar is gone now. But it's unlikely that you would stay in pedal assist 5 when the bars go away. So now we're down to an empty, I want to stop here for a second. It looks like we're down to no bars left on the battery. We're at about 27.5 miles, 54.5 volts when it's resting, with light wattage going through it, meaning pedal assist 3. So I want to see what happens. It looks like that bar comes back when I rest there for a while. See how when I stop, it's 54 now, and it's coming back. So it looks like right around 54 volts, you'll see that last bar go away. So if anyone's wondering, that voltage is 54 volts when you lose your final bar, and full battery is 67 volts when it's fully charged. Okay, so you see that bar kind of flashing going away. We're only putting about 650 watts through the motor right now, so it's very slowly eating away at that voltage. Like I said, if I kept it at pedal assist 5, it would probably be flashing within a few minutes. But I want to see where that cutoff is, where the battery meter starts flashing. Like I said, we're down to 52.9 volts, and I want to see when the cutout happens where this battery meter will start flashing. The outside edges of the meter will flash. And so kind of waiting for that to happen. Just been riding around here in the neighborhoods near my house, so that when that does start flashing, I'm basically going to turn the power off and pedal the bike home with no power, which should be pretty easy because it's flat around my house. And I just want to see when that voltage shows it cutting off, like I've said. So stick around. It might take a little bit longer. We're at 28 miles now, and I would say that's pretty much the maximum distance you're really going to get. I might get another mile or so at this point, but it looks like that's going to be pretty much about as far as you can go. So, you know, 25 to 30 miles, depending on your weight and the hills in your area. If you're running full power out of this thing, you know, 2,000 watts, and you don't lower the wattage or the power until you hit that 1 bar mark like I did. And then I went to pedal assist 3. And so the question is, when will we start to see that flashing bar? Because to me, that's the real cutoff. That's when the bike is no longer, you know, it's just really bad for the battery at that point, I'd say, to ride it any longer. You know, if I was doing this not as a test, I would already be trying to be home by now with no bars left, obviously. But I want to see, when does that battery meter flash? At what voltage is it going to start flashing? So under this load of about 650 watts, we're at 52.6 volts, 52.5. I'm going to let you know as soon as I see that battery meter start flashing. So under full throttle, I just want to see how many watts this motor can put out. 1500. Oh, interesting. So that just made the battery meter flash when I was full throttling it, which was going above what the pedal assist 3 will give, and that was about 1500 watts, and it made the meter start flashing. I noticed it went just below 52 volts. Now it's coming back up to 53.5, and it just stopped flashing. So we're at 29 miles and we're at 53.5 volts, and it looks like that's going to be the limit, folks. So like I said, you can expect about 25 to 30, depending on your weight, miles on this thing before it cuts out on you, and that's going to be about all you can get out of it. So if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to. I'm going to be making a lot more content with this bike. I really appreciate everyone that's helped me get to over 1,000 subscribers so quickly. And if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below, and I will reach out and I will answer every question that's asked, and I'll respond to all comments. I really appreciate it. Like I said, guys, it looks like that voltage where it cuts out is going to be about it's going to be about 52 volts roughly. Let's see if we can get it to do it again here. Okay, so there it is. I just did it again. So twisting throttle when your battery is really low like that is going to make it flash. It's going to make it go below that voltage point. It looks like 52 volts is the cutoff to where your battery meter is going to flash, and I believe 54 volts, at least under load, to 55 volts is going to make that last bar go away. So as I rest here, you can see we're at a total of about 1.5 hours total time. It took 29 miles, let's call it almost 30 miles, to where it's going to run out of juice completely. So 53.5 volts, looks like we're right in between no bars and flashing. So the cutoff, I'm going to say under load, is going to be 52 volts, to where you are not going to be able to go anymore. So if you see it hit 53, 54 under a resting condition, you're done. I mean, you have no more juice in the battery. And if you decide to push it, like I'm going to do here in a second, it's basically going to run out. I'm going to do a little twist throttle here to get some power out. See how it went to 51.9 there, and then it flashed. So that's it, folks. Thank you if you watched all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. When it's flashing like this, I'm pedaling and there's no power coming into the motor. It's showing like 40 watts, but there's no, very limited power coming through. So that 52 volt mark is the low water mark for the battery. If you go that low, it just came back on because it stopped flashing. That's it. That's all you have. I'm not going to damage the battery any further. I'm going to put this down to pedal assist 0 so that I don't waste any more of the battery life. But like I said, folks, hit that like button and subscribe. If If you appreciate this content, if you have any other questions about this 2024 Wired Freedom, be sure to leave them in the comments below, and I will reach out and respond to all questions. Thanks so much.